Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook. Chapter 16. Is this something that humans can do? After deepening his understanding of his artifact soul skills again, Chu Huan continued to search for the next target with the new necromancer stinging wolf. As a secret realm, being able to allow beasts to survive in it naturally constitutes a special biological chain. Naturally, in the secret realm of beasts, in addition to the beasts, there are other associated creatures. It's just that the threat of these creatures is extremely low, far less dangerous than the beasts. However, as the level of the secret realm increases, the strength and threat of these creatures will continue to increase. For example, taking the 1-star silver beast secret realm as an example, other creatures in it are likely to be at the level of 7 or even 8-star bronze. Although the individual strength may not reach the upper limit of the secret realm, if the beasts live in groups, the trouble may not be much less than the benchmark beasts in the secret realm. Chu Huan once heard that in a secret realm of 7 silver stars, a group of bloodthirsty ants with a single strength reaching 1 star of silver was born. All creatures in that secret realm were included in the category of food, and the awakened ones who entered, once encountering a bloodthirsty ant with a number of 100,000, there is no way out except to escape. At this moment, Chu Huan looked at a few biting wolves in the distance that were eating the corpse of a large herbivorous beast. Chu Huan raised his brows lightly. 5. It's quite suitable. Through previous attempts, Chu Huan can also be sure that the soul power in the body will be quickly consumed when these undead biting wolves controlled by their own soul skills are facing battles or injuries. With the characteristics of being fierce and not afraid of death, at most one enemy 3. And the number of the small biting wolf team in the distance has reached 5, and the biting wolf next to Chu Huan will definitely not be able to solve it. The reason why it is appropriate is that Chu Huan himself is ready to play in person. After all, things like combat experience and awareness can't be faked, they can only be accumulated through constant battles. Kong has strength but doesn't know how to use it. Such a stupid situation Chu Huan doesn't want to happen to him in the future. After Huan glanced at the surrounding environment, Chu Huan's eyes suddenly fixed on 2 boulders that were about a person's height not far away, with a gap of about 50 centimeters between them. Looking at the 2 boulders over there, and at the few undead wolves on the side, Chu Huan suddenly had a bold idea in his heart. After a few seconds of quick thoughts in his mind, Chu Huan moved to the other side while keeping the necromancer next to him still. Crouching on tiptoe on a slope behind the 5 wolves, Chu Huan stuck his head out and looked at him. After confirming that the 5 wolves still hadn't noticed him, Chu Huan sneered and drove the man who had been left in place in the distance. That undead piercing wolf. Immediately, driven by Chu Huan, the piercing wolf that was lurking in the distance was already rushing towards the 5 piercing wolves in a low howl. At the same time, the 5 biting wolves who were still eating noticed the movements of the undead biting wolf and raised their heads one after another, and a wolf face full of blood was aimed at the fast-rushing deadly biting wolf. The body arched slightly, obviously alert. It was also when the attention of the 5 wolves were drawn away that Chu Huan, who had been behind the wolves, moved. In an instant, he rushed towards the 5 bone-piercing wolves at full speed. When Chu Huan was leaving, the 5 biting wolves who were originally staring into the distance also quickly turned their heads to look at Chu Huan. However, with Chu Huan's current agility, a distance of about 50 meters can be crossed in just a few blinks of an eye. With the previous distraction, it was too late by the time these 5 bone-piercing wolves reacted. Almost as soon as these wolf faces turned their heads to face Chu Huan, one foot was enlarged in the eyes of the piercing wolf on the far side. Tiger shot. Ow! He kicked the unprepared biting wolf out with all his strength. After kicking a bone-piercing wolf, Chu Huan's body kept on rolling, and his body rolled on the ground. The moment he got up, he directly grabbed the leg of the other bone-piercing wolf. The 5 fingers were tightly clasped, and the muscles tightened and exerted force, which directly caused the center of gravity of this biting wolf to be unbalanced. Then, the piercing wolf, completely unable to control its center of gravity, was dragged by Chu Huan's leg and ran towards the distance. While the dust was flying along the way, the bone spurs on his body left trails of drag marks on the ground because of the fact that the bone-piercing wolf was dragged along the way. Ow! He kicked one of his companions away in front of him, and dragged one away. This kind of shameless behavior of eating and taking made the remaining 3 biting wolves stunned for a second before they all showed their fangs and prepared to chase after Chu Huan. But before the three bone-piercing wolves ran a few steps, the undead bone-piercing wolf under Chu Huan's control jumped directly at the three bone-piercing wolves and scuffled and bit each other. With the interference of this undead piercing wolf, it turned out that only the piercing wolf who had been kicked by Chu Huan before turned over and roared and chased after him. On the other hand, Chu Huan, dragging a piercing wolf for another 100 meters, arrived at the two boulders he saw at the beginning. Go away. When he arrived at the location of the boulder, Chu Huan gave a soft drink, and his arm grabbing the bone-piercing wolf's leg suddenly exerted force to swing the bone-piercing wolf into the air. After swinging the piercing wolf up and drawing a semicircle in the air, the piercing wolf was smashed into the gap between the two boulders uncontrollably. Then, the piercing wolf successfully got stuck in the gap between the two boulders with its stomach turned upside down. No matter how his limbs swayed, he couldn't break free at all. He could only helplessly raise his head and call for help to the other bone-piercing wolves. Weak, pitiful, and helpless, if this biting wolf could speak, he would have already scolded Chu Huan. Forcibly dragging yourself away from your companion, and then dragging yourself all the way in order to get stuck in the middle of this boulder and unable to move. Is this something a human can do? Is this enough to eat? Chapter 17. The biggest difference between humans and beasts is that humans use tools and the environment around them. Chu Huan is now much faster than the piercing wolf. But the problem is that Chu Huan is a rookie now. Combat experience is the lesson of blood and tears in the battle of the awakened beasts. But whether it is blood or tears, Chu Huan has no interest. It is better to control one of the wolves first, and then concentrate on dealing with one piercing wolf, rather than being in a hurry when facing two piercing wolves at the same time. After immobilizing the piercing wolf, Chu Huan turned his body and avoided another piercing wolf that was chasing after him. He slapped the piercing wolf on the face of the piercing wolf. With all his strength, the biting wolf in the air was slapped aside by Chu Huan again. In the next second, the biting wolf turned over and stood up and continued to charge towards Chu Huan. Chu Huan's agility attribute is only 10 points, and this biting wolf's agility attribute is only 3 points. With 3 times the agility gap, Chu Huan's reaction speed and shot are much faster than this piercing wolf. But as this piercing wolf was continuously fanned by Chu Huan's brows were slightly wrinkled. With more than a dozen slaps in succession, Chu Huan's right hand felt a little numb, even if it was the reaction of the force. Except for the wolf's face and abdomen, this biting wolf is full of bone spurs. Chu Huan is different from the undead biting wolf. Therefore, it is impossible for Chu Huan to use his own hands to attack other directions without a weapon. Chu Huan had no other choice but to slap his face. It's just that it doesn't hurt, but it's extremely insulting. As a result, this biting wolf was slapped by Chu Huan for more than a dozen times, and the blood volume was only reduced by a third. According to such a situation, it would take a lot of time to get rid of this biting wolf with bare hands. Thinking about it, Chu Huan's eyes suddenly settled on the bone spurs on the bone-piercing wolf. A few seconds later, when looking at the piercing wolf in front of him, a malicious smile appeared on the corner of Chu Huan's mouth. It was also when Chu Huan noticed it, the biting wolf who had just been swept away by Chu Huan in the distance rushed over again. When it was almost 5 meters away from Chu Huan, the bone spur jumped and rushed towards Chu Huan. In this regard, Chu Huan's eyes lit up, his body suddenly burst into flames and then rushed directly under the piercing wolf. A hand directly clasped the leg of a piercing wolf and quickly pulled down and smashed to the ground. The violent impact was transmitted to the whole body of this bone-piercing wolf the moment it touched the ground, and even his head was a little stiff under the shock. It was as if the brains were all collided. Before the piercing wolf could react, as before, Chu Huan repeated his old tricks and dragged the piercing wolf's leg quickly to the edge of the boulder. Then he directly swung the bone-piercing wolf up and smashed it brazenly at the bone-piercing wolf that was still stuck in the gap in front of him. You know, at this moment, the bone spurs on the two bone-piercing wolves can be said to be wrapping the two bone-piercing wolves as tightly as hedgehogs. Usually these bone spurs can be said to be the natural protective armor of these bone-piercing wolves. But now, as the two piercing wolves collided with each other vigorously, the bone spurs on the two piercing wolves that used to protect each other have now become sharp weapons to hurt each other. Just like that sentence, "There is no gun, no cannon, the enemy made it for us." With this kind of local material and the best use of everything, why does Chu Huan need to use his own hands as a weapon? Under this strong impact, the piercing wolf originally in Chu Huan's hands slammed into the other piercing wolf. When the two piercing wolves collided, the bone spurs pierced into each other's bodies. Ow! Ow! In an instant, two successive screams sounded from the mouths of these two bone-piercing wolves. But the next second, in Chu Huan's stunned, the two bone-piercing wolves, who were screaming miserably, wailed, followed by a few whispers, and the two bone-piercing wolves were actually biting, as if blaming the other party for hurting him. Seeing this scene, Chu Huan frowned lightly. Yo, just kidding, in front of such a big living person, these two biting wolves actually bit each other like no one else, which is completely contempt for Chu Huan. In response, Chu Huan raised his hand decisively and then lifted the biting wolf that was on top of it and smashed it down again. In this way, after more than a dozen consecutive hits, by hurting each other, the blood volume of the two biting wolves successfully dropped to a low peak. After eliminating the two biting wolves, Chu Huan turned his eyes to the other side. As his eyes moved, Chu Huan just saw his undead stinging wolf bite the last stinging wolf's neck and fell softly to the ground. Sure enough, 3 is the limit. I don't know if these little brothers can't fight for a little longer after the level of my soul skill increases. With a murmur in his heart, Chu Huan turned and broke a bone spur of a bone-piercing wolf as a weapon and then threw away the bones of the bone-piercing wolf in front of him. A few minutes later, Chu Huan also began to feel the problem as the beast crystals in the bodies of the 5 biting wolves appeared in Chu Huan's hands. When he was with Fu Wenbo before, Chu Huan wondered why when he killed the beasts, he didn't need to touch the beasts or the beast crystals in the beasts' bodies to have a system that could directly absorb the energy of the beasts. Hint. But at other times, the energy in the beast crystal can only be absorbed when the beast crystal is in contact with it in person. The reason is simple. When the beast crystal has just left the body, the surface of the beast crystal is soft, with a protective layer like jelly. But after a minute, the protective layer of this layer of glue will quickly harden. At this time, only Chu Huan can absorb energy when he touches the beast crystal. After understanding this, Chu Huan nodded with satisfaction. Now, with Chu Huan's continuous research, his own system has been uncovered with layers of tulle just like the clothes on a big girl. In this way, it won't take long for Chu Huan to know the system like the back of his hand. Chapter 18. Slowly the majesty blew past, and the originally bright sky also began to darken a bit. Located on the edge of a valley, Chu Huan frowned slightly when he looked at the sky after successfully absorbing the energy of the beast crystals from the 8 bone-piercing wolf corpses around him. The environment in the beast secret realm is different. Some beast secret realms are always at night, and some beast secret realms are always in the state of day or dusk. But no matter what, according to the recognition of the awakened, once the secret realm of the beast reaches the night, the level of danger will skyrocket. Especially for low-level awakened ones. A low-level awakener's physique is not strong enough to be able to see the surroundings as clearly at night as it is during the day. Of course, the danger is needless to say. Therefore, seeing that the sky was gradually darkening, Chu Huan did not linger too much and quickly walked towards the entrance of the ferocious beast secret realm. Half an hour later, after getting on the bus back to the city and having a big meal outside, Chu Huan dragged his tired body back home. Throwing his body directly on the sofa, Chu Huan didn't want to move a finger at all. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that Chu Huan, who had calmed down a little, sat up reluctantly and his thoughts floated. The next moment, Chu Huan's attribute panel also appeared in front of Chu Huan. Host: Chu Huan, HP, 180/180ths. Level: 1 star awakened apprentice, soul power required for upgrade, 259/400ths. Tool Soul, Arhu, Suona. Physical Constitution, 1.8 basic standard as 1. Strength, 3.2 basic standard as 1. Agility, 10 basic standard as 1. Mental Strength, 2.32 basic standard as 1. Tool Soul Skill, Suona Tool Soul, Coffin Carrying March Level 1 System Points required to upgrade, 0.01000ths. Auxiliary Skill, Basic Soul Power Method. Current System Points, 103. For more than 3 consecutive hours, Chu Huan gained a total of 103 system points in this mysterious realm of piercing wolves and beasts. In other words, the number of biting wolves that died in Chu Huan's hands today has reached 3 figures. More than half of them were killed by Chu Huan's undead wolves controlled by his skills or directly using his weapon soul skills. But in these 3 hours, Chu Huan's progress is also clear and clear. After getting acquainted with the rhythm of the battle with the wolves and the strength of the wolves, in the last hour, Chu Huan faced more and more wolves alone. By now, there is absolutely no problem with 155 without taking any risks. Looking at his system panel, Chu Huan had a thoughtful look on his face. Although the continuous improvement of Chu Huan's combat experience has led to a gradual increase in the number of biting wolves he faces, the consumption of physical strength is also increasing. For example, in the last time, basically Chu Huan and after killing the stinging wolves around him had to rest for 10 minutes before they could calm down. The problem of physical strength has become a drag on Chu Huan's hunting efficiency. The attributes of strength and agility are enough to deal with the situation of the biting wolf. Therefore, after thinking about it for a while, Chu Huan directly added all the system points to the physical attribute. In an instant, Chu Huan's physical attribute changed from the previous 1.8 to the current 2.8. At the same time, the body that had been somewhat exhausted from the 3-hour battle suddenly felt a warm current. Just like a horse killing a chicken, Chu Huan couldn't help but slightly closed his eyes and showed a look on his face. A little improvement in physique. For Chu Huan, the effect is definitely immediate. This kind of improvement that can be seen by the naked eye makes Chu Huan a little fascinated. After closing the system panel, Chu Huan began to review other gains other than system points. First of all, in the previous test, Chu Huan could basically be sure that the range covered by his current tool soul skill was almost 300 meters away. Once more than 300 meters, his tool soul skills will also fail to activate. The phantom of carrying the coffin will not appear. Secondly, within half an hour of the beast's death, or within a minute of the beast crystal being taken out of the beast's body, Chu Huan can directly convert the beast crystal energy in the beast into system points through the system. This effective range can reach about 100 meters. In addition, there are some questions about combat skills. After summing it all up, Chu Huan suddenly shook his head. Although at present, my tool soul skill is strong, but it is not without weaknesses. The most obvious problem is that it takes too long to play the march for carrying the coffin through the Suona device soul. A piece of music is nearly 2 minutes long, and those few coffin lifting phantoms will appear when the song is played for about 12 seconds. It's fine as usual. If there is a special situation, a piece of music may be enough time for Chu Huan to die several times. Could it be that the time of this song can't be shortened? Anyway, it's just these few tunes over and over. While muttering in his heart, Chu Huan made the Suona device soul in his left ventricle appear in front of Chu Huan through his soul power. Looking at this Suona, that was completely white, and could not even see the lines on it, but could simply see a shape of Suona, Chu Huan couldn't help but have a thought in his mind. By the way, can I blow this thing myself? As soon as this thought came out, it lingered in Chu Huan's heart like tarsal plaster. Driven by this thought, Chu Huan slowly raised his hand and grabbed the Suona in front of him. Chapter 19. Holding the Suona in his hand, the hand did not go straight through as Chu Huan imagined before, but it was like the real thing. The touch and temperature can be clearly felt. Not only that, when Chu Huan held the Suona in his hand also gave Chu Huan an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Just as this Suona was originally a part of Chu Huan's body, it felt very strange. After playing with it for a while, Chu Huan put the Suona to his mouth and was ready to try to play it. However, just when the Suona was raised to his lips, Chu Huan suddenly discovered a problem. When I used the Suona to play the march for carrying the coffin, it was all through soul power anyway. The specific playing Chu Huan doesn't need to be played at all. But when it was time to talk to himself, Chu Huan suddenly discovered a serious problem. It seems that I have never learned Suona before. Thinking of this, Chu Huan suddenly felt pain. What do I do now? Is it possible that I have to find a music training class for music lessons first? For a time, Chu Huan's interest was greatly reduced. Looking at the Suona in front of him also became a little boring. Forget it, take it out anyway, let's play it. After muttering in his heart, Chu Huan still put the Suona device soul to his lips. However, the moment Chu Huan put the Suona soul to his mouth, Chu Huan clearly felt that the Suona in his hand suddenly trembled slightly. In the next second, information suddenly flooded into Chu Huan's mind. It was also when these messages poured into Chu Huan's mind that a special feeling echoed in Chu Huan's body like a blessing to his soul. Under these wonderful sensations, Chu Huan pressed his fingers on the sound hole instinctively. With the movement of his fingers, a breath of air was also blown out from Chu Huan's mouth and into the Suona in front of him. If there are other people looking at Chu Huan at the moment, I am afraid they will think that Chu Huan has been addicted to music for more than 10 years. In an instant, a penetrating Suona sound rang directly. And the Suona sound that came out was not Chu Huan's blind blowing. The music carried in this unique voice is the coffin-carrying march that Chu Huan has already heard today. It was also at the same time when Chu Huan played the coffin-carrying march, the soul in Chu Huan's body began to frantically pour into the Suona in Chu Huan's hands along Chu Huan's hands. FK, can I use this Suona device to blow out the march for carrying the coffin? I have to say that Chu Huan was really shocked at this moment. I originally thought that I, who had a different rhythm, might not be able to play by myself in the future. How could I have imagined that my soul would be so awesome? Not only was he able to play by himself, but he even taught himself without a teacher, and instantly became proficient in how to play by himself. Totally buy one get one free. However, after being excited for a while, Chu Huan suddenly discovered that the soul power in his body had actually decreased by 1/10. At this time, after realizing it, Chu Huan, who had realized why his soul power had decreased so much, couldn't help but once again put his eyes on the Suona in his hand. Obviously, the reason why the soul power has been reduced so much is only possible that it was consumed when he just played the Suona. For a time, Chu Huan's face also became a little more thoughtful. This, carrying the coffin march, Chu Huan played several times in the Ferocious Beast secret realm almost every few minutes in the afternoon. Basically, every time a song ends, it consumes about a quarter of Chu Huan's total soul power. But now, in just a few seconds, nearly 1/10 of it has been consumed. According to the current situation, within 10 seconds at most, Chu Huan's soul power will be completely consumed. Compared with the consumption of soul power in the afternoon, it was nearly 10 times more in vain. The speed of soul power consumption is so great. Could it be said that playing by yourself will have a different effect than playing it through the soul? While thinking about it in his heart, Chu Huan also decided to go to the secret realm of the Fierce Wolf and Fierce Beast tomorrow to try it out to see if there were any other changes when he played the coffin-carrying march by himself. If it is possible to shorten the time for each activation of the coffin-carrying march by playing it yourself, that would be great. Suddenly, there was a new skill, and he was able to play his own soul, which made Chu Huan feel better. But when Chu Huan subconsciously opened his bank account to check his balance that had changed from 4 digits to 3 digits, Chu Huan's expression suddenly collapsed. Chu Huan shook his head and said, "It seems that the day after tomorrow, at the latest, I have to go to other more advanced beast secret realms. Although it is said that everything is difficult at the beginning, there is nothing wrong with being stable in the early stage. But if the problem dragged on for a few more days, Chu Huan's meal would be a problem. As the physique of the awakened person increases, the requirements for food are also getting higher and higher. For example, after returning to the city, Chu Huan ate more than 300 yuan for a meal before he was full. This is just the beginning. With the improvement of Chu Huan's strength later, the requirements for food will become higher and higher. If this consumption continues, the money in Chu Huan's bank card may only be in double digits for 3 or 4 days at most." Thinking of that scene, Chu Huan felt a little desolate. Therefore, now Chu Huan can only be steady and fast. After I get used to it for another day tomorrow, I will start to change to some more advanced Ferocious Beast secret realm and make money to support myself. Chapter 20. The next day, in the classroom. There were only a dozen or so students in the classroom that used to be full of people. The entire classroom was suddenly empty. Unlike the smiling faces of the other students, Chu Huan, who was still sitting in the corner of the classroom, was yawning. Although it is said that before students enter the university, the content about the awakened and the beast is the key learning object. But what I learned before is more about the dangers and weaknesses of beasts. For example, the materials on those beasts are more valuable, and only Chu Huan can check it himself. So Chu Huan also stayed up late when he was checking the information. In Linhai City, the level is below the Black Iron level, and there are not many secret realms corresponding to the apprentice level of the awakened. That adds up to 4. In addition to the biting wolf beast secret realm that Chu Huan entered yesterday, there is another magic sound spider vicious beast secret realm, a bloodthirsty gnome vicious beast secret realm, and another colorful python murderer secret realm. And the most valuable among them is the colorful python. Not only flesh and blood can be used as food for the awakened to eat. The python tendon on the body is a special material, which can be used to make some low-level awakened weapons. According to the information on the internet, the price of a python tendon can reach 500 yuan. If one counts the flesh and blood, Chu Huan will be able to earn 1,000 yuan after selling it to those awakened merchants. But here comes the problem. Among these 3 kinds of beasts, the bloodthirsty dwarf is a low-level 3-star beast, while the colorful python is a low-level 5-star beast. The last magic sound spider is a low-level 9-star beast. They correspond to the 3-star awakened apprentices, the 7-star awakened apprentices, and the 9-star awakened apprentices. The current Chu Huan is only a 1-star awakened apprentice. In the official data, the colorful python, as a 5-star beast, has reached 27 points in strength and 30 points in agility. You must know that after each promotion of the awakened, although the attributes of the body will increase, generally speaking, it will increase by a few points at most. More than that, it takes a lot of time and experience to exercise to improve. On average, after most awakens advance, their physical attributes increase between 3 and 5 points. Ordinary 5-star awakened apprentices, in terms of strength and agility attributes, unless they are special or gifted in spirit, most of the attributes are in the range of 15 to 25 points. Compared with the colorful python, it is not much lower. Only those geniuses with special tool souls or talents with extraordinary talents will have a higher limit for their physical attributes after each promotion. And the situation of the colorful python is also the status quo of most beasts. If it is not the same level, the basic attributes of the beasts are higher than those of the awakened ones of the same level, and the awakened ones will not be so keen on team battles. Only those geniuses with special tool souls or unique talents will increase the upper limit of their physical attributes after each promotion. Is it uncomfortable to just go it alone and make as much money as you want? Where else do you need to find ways to join some stronger awakened teams? To let the current Chu Huan enter the secret realm of the colorful python, Chu Huan estimates that he is more likely to become the prey. Melancholy. It seems that if you want to make money, you can only retreat for the time being and focus on the beast crystal. A low-level 1-star beast crystal like the bone wolf, although the level is the lowest, a beast crystal can be sold for nearly 100 yuan. As long as Chu Huan hunts enough wolves every day, life will not be a problem for the time being. While Chu Huan was laying on the table, he was making plans for the next few days. As the class bell rang, an unfamiliar middle-aged man entered the classroom on time. After walking to the podium, the man glanced at the students in the classroom and introduced, "Okay, let me introduce myself now. I am Xu Hongwen, and I will be your actual combat training teacher for the next year, and now I will start the roll call." Quote. After a brief introduction of himself, Xu Hongwen took it out without saying a word, then took out the manual and made a roll call. There is no nonsense and the icy expression on his face gives people a sense of awe and coldness. It's just that when Chu Huan was called by name, Xu Hongwen couldn't help but glance at Chu Huan after seeing the words, "Twin Soul," introduced by Chu Huan. But seeing Chu Huan's eyes squinting sluggishly, Xu Hongwen couldn't help frowning. After confirming that the awakened students in the class are all present, Xu Hongwen waved his hand and said, "Now the whole class will come to the training hall with me." "Ha, are you going to the training hall for class today? Could it be that fighting skills will be taught today? I thought it would be a few days before the fighting skills training began." In the corner of the classroom, listening to the low talk from the students in the class, Chu Huan also felt a sense of energy all at once. Because of the beasts, the teaching purpose of the entire human race now is to cultivate more excellent and powerful awakeners. Therefore, before the awakened person successfully awakens, what the students learn is still some theoretical knowledge. When the students are awakened, the school will carry out key teaching related to the awakened ones. For example, training and teaching of fighting skills, and actual combat classes. Yesterday, Chu Huan said that he had spent an afternoon in the secret realm of beasts. But Chu Huan's fighting skills, to put it bluntly, are exactly the same as fighting with ordinary people, just grab the weak points and beat them to death. So Chu Huan also understands the importance of fighting skills to an awakened person. In anticipation in their hearts, Chu Huan and all the students followed Xu Hongwen towards the school's training hall. When he reached the entrance of the training hall, Xu Hongwen paused and glanced at the students in class 18 beside him. You guys go to the 103 training room first, I'll go prepare something and come back. Hearing what Xu Hongwen said, the students nodded hurriedly like chickens pecking at rice, full of anticipation. Seeing that the students quickly entered the training hall, Xu Hongwen suddenly snorted. I'm not afraid that you guys are happy, just don't cry later. However, at this moment, Xu Hongwen's phone suddenly vibrated. After looking at the caller ID, Xu Hongwen answered the phone and said, "Old Fu, what's wrong?" The voice just fell, and Fu Wenbo's voice on the other side of the phone rang. Have you brought the students to the training hall? Xu Hongwen said, not bad. Just arrived, and now the students have just entered. It is estimated that they will all be scared to the ground. However, upon hearing this, Fu Wenbo, who was opposite, exploded instantly. Damn it, you stupid, don't you ask me before you do this. Come on, go and pull the kid named Chu Huan out of the class and don't let him participate, I'll rush over right away. Thanks for watching, please like and subscribe.